Ralph. Okay. And also I ask to come here Alexander Dominguez, Christian Senley, and Jim van den Rijs. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gianluca, and also a huge thank you to Manon for such an on-time delivery on the panel, which is quite exceptional for conferences today. So thank you for this. Happy to see you all here for the now 1 hour roundtable on nationwide ticketing initiatives. And we have chosen this topic because there is some momentum coming up at this level. I myself, I live in an area where there is a big lake, 3 countries coming together, and I have 3 national tickets in my wallet. It helps, but it also is not helping. But this is not the question today, and I'm very happy that it's not the question today, because today we are addressing the global perspective, our technological understanding that we are sharing here, and the willingness to learn from each other, as it was mentioned in the previous panel, that sharing knowledge, getting interest, from the experiences is a prerequisite for the own developments. So for this, I'm extremely pleased to have here today such a distinguished our 2 representatives from Africa and 2 representatives from Europe, and in addition, an industry view from a global player from the US. So welcome to you, Mario, Ababakar, Alexandre, Jim, and Christian. So to get the things going, and in order to break the ice, I will ask now each one of you to give a short introduction into where you are standing, where you're planning to head, and then after this, we will, of course, also interact with you. Yeah, not only with questions, I'm also happy to get some of those experiences that you might have and you would like to share. And then I hope the hour will be interesting and you will enjoy the coffee even more. So, Mario, I would like to start with you. I thought we do now something from the very south, more to the north. Yeah, and at the end we will have then Christian with the industry view afterwards. So please tell us a bit what are your plans that you have in terms of nationwide ticketing.
Thank you, Ralph. And so let me start by saying that as I mentioned before, our system is a new system. Before 2019, we had a system in place, but without a ticketing system, a transport system that was a very chaotic system, because no one knew the hour that the bus could go through the stop. The operators disorganized in their business. A very big challenge to manage. So the authority also didn't have the notion on how the system worked. So even the subvention from the government mainly was not controlled. So a lot of money spent in the system, but the user experience was very, very bad. In 2017, we started our system, our project, to implement a ticketing system. But before, what we did is the reform our transportation system, So first, the government, central government, had the oversee of the old system. But after the reforms, this oversee of the system was taken by the local government. So they knew the territory and the people, so now they are the authority of transport. MB, my company, is the ticketing company who collect all the information on the system and do the sharing to the operator. So our system is MyFare 1K based system. Is a centralized database, so we control the user by the line. So each line, we have almost 100 lines in the system. So there is, I think, 90% of the lines have the same tariff, and 10% have another tariff. So when the user take the bus and in a line, so it will pay the tariff of the line. These all over the country. So we have is a card-based system and can be used all over the country. So the user has to buy only one time the ticket and can use it all over the country. We have almost more than 35 million inhabitants in Angola, but the system is now running in the capital, Luanda. Luanda has almost 10 million people. And we have in the system almost 200 million passengers per year, more than 200 million kilometers per year. We have 17 operators in the system, but now the system is growing. Now we have almost 1,000 buses. The system is only working on the bus right now, but our challenge is to go this year, to start this year with the trains and the boat. Also, in development plan of Luanda, we are starting now implementing the metro of Luanda, mainly to take the people from the city to the new airport that is being constructed and will be inaugurated at, I think, in November. So this is our system. The system we implemented now and the organization that we did in our system, we have in place now a system that works, and the people can trust today the system. Of course, as a developing country, we face a big challenge. Our country is a second exporter of oil, okay, producer of oil. So our economy relies on oil. When we say, when the buyers, so they feel something, so we feel twice. So in advance that we are seeing in the economy all over the world, so we are also experiencing some challenge to grow our system. But what we are thinking next is to migrate our system to Calypso, full Calypso, and implement our own central system, ticketing system, based on Calypso standard and mostly on open source software. Now we have a partner that work with us, supply us, which is Transdata from Brazil. They are working with us also to migrate to the Calypso. But this migration is depending on the open SAM that is being developed by Calypso. Because if we want to own our system and we have open source philosophy, so we believe that with open SAM, we will achieve what we want in our system. But having this proprietary system is a big challenge as for us because we have only one integrator. So having our own system will give us the possibility to have more integrators in the system, and of course lower our TCO, cost of ownership of our system, and give us the total control of our development. We have, we will start now issuing the cards. Our system today works only with operators. So when the user get in the bus, so is the driver or the collector that is in bus that put the card on the validator, and we have, I don't know, catraca in something like a gate in the base. Yes, in the base. So it present and then something that turn around to allow the user to get in to the bus. Starting October, we'll begin to issue the card for the user. We are planning to start because of the technology that we have, MyFair, so we need to go slow. So because of the challenge that although some mechanisms of security that was implemented by our supplier to get to give more security to our system, but we will start going small. We'll start with student. We have regular users who pay the tariff in 100%, and we have social tariffs for student, which is 100% social, so they don't pay anything, the student, until 16 here. And we have also for the young people in Africa, according to the African Union, is until 35 years. So they pay 50% of the tariff, and we have for the elderly and the veterans. So this is the social tariffs that we have, which is supported by government. Until the end of this year, we expect to issue around 100,000 tickets for the student, and to start the operation in fully of our system. In terms of payment, so we have the traditional system POS for top up of the cards, and we have also the online top up, mostly now for using mobile money, because in Africa we have more people with the mobile phone than with bank card. So mobile money is a technology that is spreading all around Africa, and we have implemented in our system. The client can use this technology so to top up his card, and using also our applications and our online platform to charge the card and so he can use the system. So I think this is an overview of what we have in Angola in terms of ticketing system.
Thank you very much, Mario, for this nice overview. And I would immediately pass the word to Ababakar from Dakar, please.
Yes, thank you. I said CETUD is previously the urban authority just in Dakar. Faced with new challenge marked by the conurbation between Dakar and Thiès, city 80 kilometers away, and a policy of territorial equity from the government. Our mission was extended to cover Dakar and Thiès, and we can assist all the other regions. In Dakar, with the implementation of the project to restructure the transport network, we want to guarantee at least the interoperability of the systems. Fair integration is even planned between the feeder network, the BRT, and the TR. We want to extend the interoperabilities to the national level because we already manage 11 transport networks outside Dakar throughout the project to renew fleets of artisanal operators. We are working in pooling and standardizing practices to accelerate the professionalization of these informal actors. Thus, we are promoting relying on a locally managed Calypso Uplink system to move towards a national ticketing scheme. The interoperability charter is currently being drawn up, and all the Senegalese urban transport networks under our responsibility will be signatories to this charter and will apply it. We have already made our case for the operators, and they agree. It should be noted that this implementation will be facilitated by the fact that the solutions currently in use are limited to computerizing ticketing. And we want to have one card or offer for our population when they arrive in Dakar to use their card in region to move in Dakar with our network. Thank you.
Thank you, Ababakar, for this overview. And now to you, Alexandre, from Portugal's perspective.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So in Portugal, we recently launched a project that is originally from the National Institute for Public Transport and Mobility. So the idea is to have a project that is called bilhete, so in English is one ticket. So the idea is to have a sharing of knowledge, experience, but also a sharing of software, of implementations that were already done. So based on the two major cities that are Lisbon and Porto, that are both based on Calypso, the idea is to have these two cities share their experience, the problems they face, the good projects that were completed, and also to share software that was developed, because as public authorities are public entities, mostly the finance comes from taxpayers' money. So it does not make sense, or at least in the logical terms, it does not make sense to have multiple entities to pay the same amount or a similar amount for a system that is almost exactly the same as the system from the region that is next to them. So the idea here is to have, if one entity already evolved in certain aspects, then, and mostly the projects are, like, once again paid by taxpayers' money, the idea is, why not share those solutions with the other regions as well? So the project is based in these 4 branches, so closed loop, mobile, open loop, and ABT. I have a few topics here. So on the closed loop, what we defined and implemented and shared with all the regions is a common embedded API, so that implements configurable business rules and is based on multiple card data models that already exist. So the same API that is currently only supporting Calypso, because we are still seeing if we need to support other technologies or not. So nowadays we have managed to stay in Calypso. We hopefully will only stay in Calypso, but to be continued. And also the idea is to have the involvement of all these public authorities, transport authorities, to contribute to evolutions to the system. So you can make contributions to the software, and then the software is available for all. Also, the idea is to have a standardized output to be communicated to the national institutes, because they nowadays have dozens and dozens of entities that communicate data to them, and it's easy for some and difficult for others. Of course, not all entities are on the same level of technology, so the idea here is also to facilitate this point and to have better data at the national level to be able to do different planning. Regarding open loop, what we are defining is a common specification and requirements for tenders in order to guarantee that we have a standardization between all the regions and to be able to achieve a tariff integration on a national level. In the case of open loop, most projects tend to be a little bit vendor dependent because we always have the part of the banking system that may have some changes. So the idea here is to make sure that we can turn this into an agnostic specification. In terms of mobile, what we are doing is a definition also of a common SDK, software development kit, that is capable both to reload via the NFC interface a Calypso card, and also to do the card emulation on the phone based on Calypso. And the idea is for it to be available both on Android and on iOS. So the remote reloading is something that is already available for both systems, but the card emulation, we are still evolving on that. The idea also is to have a standard interface at the central system level, so that the SDK can also quickly integrate with the different regions' systems. The idea here is also to be able to not only have this type of software available for the operators or for the public authorities, but also for other entities that already have mobile apps with thousands of users, and that we can integrate with them for them to also have the perspective of public information and how to go from point A to B connected to the possibility of loading a product or buying a product as well on the mobile phone. Regarding ABT, what we are also doing is a common specification and requirements for ABT, so that we are aligned between all the regions, and also in conjunction with the National Citizen Card, the entity that manages the National Citizen Card, which will be made contactless by next year, to see how this can also be integrated into transport, if it's something that is feasible or not in terms of speed, in terms of security, in terms of data protection and so on, to see if this is or not a possibility as well for ABT. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexandre. And with this, we come to Belgium. Jim from Belgian Mobility Card, please.
Okay, I have to press apparently. Good morning, everyone. So, Belgian Mobility Card, as a matter of fact, we have been thinking about changing the name and rather Belgian Mobility Company, because as you heard, the discussions is a lot about card-based or not card-based and the evolutions in there. So BMC has been running the MOBIP card scheme since 2010, which is based on the Calypso standards. And today we have about more than 7 million cards in Belgium used. These cards evolved a lot in a way that it's not only the fact of being able to travel with one card, but it's mostly also an evolution in terms of fares and tariffs. And we haven't discussed it a lot yet, but I'll come back on that later. So we run this card scheme for the 4 public transport operators in Belgium, which means all public transport is covered, and you can travel with this card with certain tariffs across Belgium. On the other hand, apart from that, each PTO has evolved also and has also implemented various other technologies, such as EMV in Brussels, and in Flanders you have also technologies, mobile apps across the various operators. And together we're launching, end of this year, a digital variant of what we call the Brupas, which is an interoperable product. But as the card is sometimes used just by one PTO or multiple or 2, but not always fully interoperable, there's also a lot of evolution now in about similar topics that the colleague from Lisbon explained. We're looking at one, how can we have more integrated fares, first of all. What's the governance to implement these? Because today, in various countries, BMC, we are a company from the 4 operators, but in a mass environment, you have other players entering, such as car sharing, bike, and so on, which also are interested now in joining schemes and being able to sell or have an interoperable, rather multimodal tickets for people to go from A to Z. So the card-based system is something, as I explained, widely used, but in terms of the evolution of people using it in the global numbers of the trips they do, it has been replaced partly, although in numbers it's still growing, but in percentage it's been replaced by systems like EMV, like mobile apps, which are not always fully interoperable. Often they only answer to one side of the trip that the passenger wants to do. And so the evolution for us in Belgium is that it's no more a technology question, we see that Calypso, for example, is also moving to more open platforms. There's lots of variables where you can go and focus on pure mobile, for example, or make other choices for that matter. But what we are looking at is, one, continue. We certainly have a set of people who are very pleased with the card-based scheme, and we will continue this for some years, for sure. But we need to evolve in order to make it more easier to use and flexible in fares for the customer. Because that we have noticed there's a strong evolution where sometimes, for example, complicated fare structures across different transport companies make it sometimes very difficult for a person to understand what's the best for him to travel from A to Z. So the projects, because I'm going to try not to repeat always the similar things, but the projects are very like you have in markets where it's very mature, such a card-based system, which means we are looking at having an open technology where it can be Calypso-based, but it can be also in parallel. We believe that probably there are already some parallel systems available in Belgium, but we don't call them fully interoperable because sometimes they don't answer to the question of completely all transport included. And so ABT, of course, it's on our radar. But when we talk about open, and that's maybe a bit different with one of the previous speakers, ABT is also a kind of open, but Calypso could also be a kind of open solution. It's all about the fact that the technology has gone forward that quickly that where the start, when we implemented in 2010, the cost for implementing was massive. The cost, it took years to develop the system, and at a cost which I can't even count. So I think there's been such a massive evolution in technology that now there's technology is forward on the governance and on the fare structures, agreements that often are needed to implement these systems. So we are implementing, we have a roadmap 3 to 5 years, and we see ourselves that in 2026, 2027, we will have the Calypso MOBIP scheme we have further interoperable with more interoperable products and an easier way for a customer to have really his fare that he wants to have. And apart from that, also an open system allowing to have the integration with any player in the mass ecosystem. Because this is already happening in Belgium. We have already the first mass platform was launched in Brussels last month. And there's also lots of initiatives at regional level, which we need to make sure that we don't, the same as a colleague said earlier on, that we don't do the investments 4 or 5 times between these operators. And therefore, I believe also that centrally managing such a scheme is essential. If you want to have a true nationwide ticketing solution, you have to make sure that you have some organization, and in certain countries it's through the government instance, sometimes it's a cooperation between public transport operators, sometimes it's even a combination between public transport operators and private suppliers also. And I think that's the next step to go for a nationwide ticketing solution. And mostly, maybe one more last remark. Often we see that in other countries also nationwide ticketing systems that is is focused around, should we let people travel for free? Or for example, the youth, okay, they maybe we don't let them pay, and so they will start using more public transport and all various means of transport. Personally, I don't believe that's the way to go. I think if you want to offer qualitative transport and payable transport for a customer, you can't expect it needs to be paid for. It's maybe a bit a strange formulation, but to keep it qualitative and payable, it can't be for free. So that's another discussion, maybe not for today, but I think a nationwide ticketing system, the objective is to have more people using the public transport and softer means of transport. So we should not forget that maybe it's worth investing some money in it, because otherwise I think without investing and without having some money on the table for that, and also for the customer to realize that he needs to take some contribution to that, I think it's a very difficult road.
Thank you, Jim, for your considerations and thoughts. So now we change a bit the perspective and we come from a global industrial player after you have heard all those things and all the experiences you're living. So Christian, please give us an insight from your perspective.
So as an industrial player, we see procurements, and it's true that recently there has been a series of national ticketing schemes procuring. Each word is important because we've heard that there is a lot of complexity behind large-scale ticketing ambitions, because you have sometimes many different authorities, you have sometimes many different existing working solutions, and in public transports we don't have a lot of new revenue coming from users. People just move around. They are not going to spend more to get a better customer experience. They will spend pretty much the same, and still they want the better customer experience. So it's a very, very difficult starting point, usually. Welcome to public transport. I think it is made of a number of things. We see it through the procurements, which are like always a mix of both efficiencies in delivering travel rights, efficiencies in managing identifiers, and efficiencies in performing payment processing. I'm mentioning those three things because the reality of the systems that are procured are made of those three so-called verticals. So it's a lot more difficult to work in public transports when you are doing revenue collection than if you work in pure payments or if you work in pure identifier type verticals. And they are already very complex. Now, that says the ambition is very high, but that ambition has been around for at least 30 years. The first national ticketing schemes that I have witnessed were delivered in the late 90s. They were city-states, like Hong Kong, Singapore, so probably easier. Their travel rights were fairly simple compared to what you find in other geographies when they are larger. So one could argue that it was, reasonable, doable, but not necessarily repeatable. However, it was repeated in the early 2000s with national schemes like the OV chip card in the Netherlands. But their fare were already integrated. They had a system, it was like paper ticket, like a strip-in card that was already interoperable. So they had done a lot of the groundwork to be able to do something more digital and still as integrated. However, that was done. I think Denmark also went quite away with two different systems, but very much integrated nationwide. So we are talking early 2000s. And in the meantime, the technology has evolved a lot. So no, it's not card-based. We are not putting many applications on the smart cards. We don't do that, right? We use our mobile phone, we use our computer, and we would like the cards to kind of follow what we have on the phone or on the computer, not the other way around. So that's new. That means more complexity, not less, but that means also more opportunities. And I think we are seeing that in the market, wherein if there are more national ticketing schemes procurements, there are also many, many, many what I call overlays. So we see, like we talked about national fare products as a solution to move forward. I call that an overlay. If you make it for free, it's like a free overlay. But the bottom line is that this is not going to answer 100% of the use cases. What we see as an industrial player is investment decisions from the public authority, usually in coordination with the transport operators, that usually have two mixes of high-level requirements, which are making the business case. One is get more people to use the transports for many, many different reasons. And they are very different from one region to the other. Of course, in Europe, we talk about the Green Deal, etc. But frankly, that's just one aspect. Elsewhere, there are sometimes more pressing aspects just to get people to be able to go somewhere, sustaining economic developments, etc. And the second business case is actually what we call the reductions of the cost of sales, which is, it's a hard reality. There isn't something that will go away overnight. So if you procure a national ticketing scheme, you have to have a magic formula. You need to be able to prove that over time, it will actually cost less to get people to use the ticketing of the public transport. And the magic formula do exist. They are straightforward. They are not complicated. And that's not one formula, but it's basically self-service. So you want people to do things themselves so that you don't have to invest in infrastructure, services, maintenance, and I don't know what. And self-service in today's world is enabled, with the phone. It's enabled by automats, vending machines. It's enabled by a number of things. So we see that in all those procurements, but not yet with a measure that says, oh, you need to save us 5% of our total cost of ownership. We don't see that yet, but I think it's coming. And so realistically, in terms of actual procurements, that means that all national schemes procurements that I have seen recently are full account base. So when I say full account base, it's not an overlay, whether it's open payment overlay, mobile overlay, automatic ticketing overlay, call it what you want, they are all different. None of them is addressing more than 20% of the use cases. The entity that procures tells us it's 100%. You're going to sign with penalties. If you don't deliver, you're going to pay millions. And you have to address 100% of the use cases. And you have to do that with a new customer experience that will encourage more use of transport. And it has to be delivered within 18 to 24 months. That's basically what the market is buying. So that was true in a number of places, like New Zealand recently, Ireland, it's still live. Denmark has done a procurement also. And then some existing national schemes have upgraded their own systems. So I can mention the Netherlands with their so-called OVP. OV stands for public transport. I think that's more or less it, but that's unfair because I think there are a lot of very large transport networks which also target 100% of the use cases and sometimes are much bigger than the nation. Like yesterday, we were hearing about Mexico City. Can't remember the exact number, but I think the gentleman was saying like 22 million people are traveling every day. Well, that's like bigger than where I live in the Netherlands, where we have 18 million people and only half are traveling every day. So you can see that when we say national schemes, I don't think it means a nation. I think it means a very large network where you have multiple authorities, because if you have only one authority, that's cheating. It's too easy. So good for you if you have only one authority. I think it's one way of doing things simply. I've heard from a number of gentlemen also centralized systems, keep it simple. Everybody's asking us the same thing. No one is asking us, can you please build these new full ABT systems with one central systems per operator, etc. Before we used to see that, like the OV chips card in the Netherlands was taken from the Octopus system in Hong Kong with the requirements to distribute it so that every operator will remain in control. So that was in 2003, 2004. I don't know any national scheme procurement that is asking this today. They want like a central system because they want to realize economies of scale. Okay, they want to save money, but more important, they want to be able to introduce innovations over the next 20 years. And they know that to do that, it's going to be about a number of things. One of them will be data. So we talk about this a lot. It means that they must have control over that data so that if they want to do new things, they basically can harvest this data with the consent of the users. It's a lot easier to do that when all the data is within one system. That's a starting point. But it also means the source of the data has to be something that can be used by, let's say, a wide ecosystem. And so usually that means that the procurement has a very careful look at what we call the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure. And that infrastructure really is all about specifying interoperability, not anymore at just the card level, but actually at the token of the credential. So I know it sounds a little bit technical, but it really isn't. Every time we interact with a system, we generate some data. It cannot be, the identifier, because that will be harvested by cyber criminals and so on. So it's always something that is protected. It's always a token. I heard about, I think someone from Lisbon talking about token vault. Well, there isn't one system that Cubic delivers since 2013 that doesn't centralize all identifier in a token vault. We don't have any system that manipulates something else than a token. So that's like a hard reality, which is already 10 years old. So there is no need to discuss, what is a token, whether we should have a token. On the other hand, there is no ABT standards, frankly, not yet. And so if we think interoperability, if we think national scheme ambition, then we need to have standards. There is no way you can create an open enough ecosystems to have local contributions by technology companies, service companies, transportation companies that want to innovate, etc. They have to understand what is the source of the data, what does it mean for me to be able to use it, to contribute to it. And so I strongly believe that we need those national schemes procurements to put an emphasis on the token. It has to be according to certain standards. Right now there isn't. So we end up as an industrial player to commit to certain things to keep it simple. It could take the form of having one terminal for the entire nation. Doesn't sound very open, right? But that's simple. So we see some of that. Do we have within CNA already solutions to open up the point of acceptance, the devices where you interact? Not 100%. I think Keeple is a good start, right? It's open source. It simplifies some of the interfaces. And so you can see that the market buys national ticketing schemes with full ABT capability because it makes sense. But the industry is not yet there unless you respond to the requirements, and you agree with the 100 millions of penalties and so on. That's your problem. You'll solve it in the future. And I conclude with that. I think that together with the national schemes procurement that we are seeing emerging, there is also a shift in the procurement. What is being bought is not anymore a system. It's not anymore engineering work. It really is more a partner. I think some people talk about it. They talk about a request for partnership rather than a request for proposal. I know it's not always easy, but there are mechanisms to do that. In the past, it used to be public-private partnerships, which doesn't have a very good reputation because it doesn't always work. I think I hear more and more partnerships for innovation, which I think is the reality of how Cubic work with its partner, because we have no other choice. If we try to write everything on paper and that it will be true for 20 years, we get into a dispute. So we might as well be clear on what are the outcomes which are expected. And so one of them these days is what I call full account-based ticketing, which means, as I've said, 100% of the use cases. And that does not mean no more card-based ticketing. I know it's confusing for a lot of us, but none of our customers are asking us to tell people who travel to stop traveling the way they do. No one wants to create friction. Therefore, card-based ticketing as it exists remains, period. We introduce a new customer experience, and that's full ABT. And this new customer experience relies on a token, which is written on a card. So I will say that full ABT is card-based ticketing. It's the same thing to me. You know, I know in the industry we talk about, oh, you don't need to write to the card because you're doing account-based. That's an overlay. You're going to do account-based for at most 20% of the use cases. And that's fine. There are plenty of good reasons to do this. But you can't do a national ABT scheme and not write to the card simply because in countries like France or Italy or Germany, we are not digital at all. We still have about 80% of people at the point of sales paying with cash, 80%. We think we are digital, we really are not. And people who pay with cash still want to pay with cash. They just don't want to share everything on the internet and I don't know what. It's not everyone, it's only a portion, but 100% of the use cases include them. And frankly, I can't tell you in 10 years, will we stop issuing card-centric solutions? I will bet no, absolutely not. And so the questions becomes just a matter of very, very much cost of ownership. How fast can you shift to the ABT customer experience to get a visibility of when you will sunset your legacy because it costs you too much. But if it doesn't cost you too much, you'll never want to turn it off, right? And I think the only place where I know the card base was totally turned off was something that we did to ourselves. That was WeCubic in 2013, 2016, with the Chicago Ventra systems, which is still full ABT. And we lost some money. It was very, very painful. So we never did that again. So I don't recommend anyone does it. But at that time, the dream, the pipe dream was, if you shift everything centrally, you don't need to write back to the card, and you'll be able to save a lot of money. That is incorrect, yeah, for the reason I've explained. And just to be 100% clear about that, it's about the token. Why? Because in the token, I will know who I am dealing with. Is it someone that wants to remain anonymous, is rarely reloading its account, and therefore there is a financial risk? Then the next question becomes, who is going to cope with the financial risk? If we can't get this money, the operator still delivers the service. They need to be paid. So who is going to pay for this? In Europe, where you have account-based overlays, often it's the authorities. At the end of the day, the authority will pay the bill. But in most situations, it doesn't work. And so you need to write to the card to know whether you're dealing with a good account holder, so you just open the gate and you'll deal with the debt later, or you're dealing with a thief. And he does that all the time, and he's reselling this kind of cards all the time. And you want to block those cards, so we are back to card-based ticketing, right? That's, I think, pretty much around. And why Calypso, why participating in Calypso when it comes to national ticketing schemes? Well, precisely because it starts with the infrastructure. And so at the beginning, I mentioned the identifier, I mentioned the travel rights, I mentioned the payments. Well, the identifier needs to be anonymous, it needs to be secure, you have to be able to authenticate it, it should be open, wherein other technology provider can use it and contribute to it, etc. And basically that's what Calypso has been doing ahead of the pack. And so when we talk about token, when we talk about the central systems, I have the hope that through this kind of forum, we will be able to establish best practices that will become de facto standards. And so this way, the interest of companies like Cubic will be that the market will be more addressable. While today, if we want to address the market, it is incredibly fragmented. It's actually very rare that we can address 100% of the use cases, even in a city. I think it was said multiple times. You have so many different things. You want to keep them running. Well, that's a lot of expensive engineering time with no impact on the customer experience, no additional travelers. So that's a lot of money that is wasted, basically. Yeah. And I think through open standards and CNA in general, Calypso, when it comes to the identifier, I think we can progress. Yeah.
Thank you, Christian. I think this was an excellent round. Next time I would suggest we do fireside chats, because all of you have been so interesting and cohesive in this presentation. And you gave some assumptions in terms of the magic formula, procurement, etc. And I would like now the panel a bit to react. Do you share these visions on the evolutions, on the perceptions that Christian has described when you think about your own reality? Any volunteer? So you share the visions?
You know, I think talking about the national scheme, in our experience, I think that will also be a challenge. I don't know, because of governing model, okay? Because I think national scheme is not more about technology, is more about the governing model, or say, I don't know, in Belgium, because today you have local companies. When you say national ticketing, the local government, they should they must be available to transfer some competence and some authority to the national company. That so it is a challenge, and I would like to hear Jim. I don't know how they under that, because we in Angola we have 18 provinces. So we are the national ticketing system company. So dealing with these 18 local government is a big challenge, because one want the red color, one want the white color. So how to bring them together and to develop the system as one system for all the client. So I think, yes, the procurement also is a challenge. but I see more in political area where we have more challenge to achieve this goal. For us in Angola is it brought us simplicity in management of our system, because you can imagine if we implemented like a regional or local company, so that will be I think impossible, because as also say Jim, the public transport is also a challenge. How to maintain, how to bring people so they can trust the transport, but this transport also must to respond to their expectation. Without a proper funding, we will not have a good system. But this funding cannot come only from the public fund. So today the challenge even in Angola is, okay, we want a system that works. We want a modern system, but who will pay the system? Who will pay the system? Turn the system like free, but if the system is free, the experience says also is the system that doesn't serve the people as it should be. So the challenge is there is in a political area, like a governing body, to know how to bring all the local government to the table and agree to the common standard. I also agree, so that we can have a system that works without any constraint.
Any short comment on that, because we have time issues, and if not, we will be cut off electricity.
So just a very quick one. I've seen like very challenging situations during my career where basically there were no money, but there were lots of people who wanted to move around, and the authorities were having different viewpoints. And in those situations, often it was like some demonstrated efficiencies, which were a little bit of a good excuse, like they were saying, lots of revenue leakage because too much cash is being used and some of the cash disappears. So we put a number on that, and sometimes 5%. And then with the right technology everywhere that everybody understands, we can get 5% faster people to use the bus. And so we were using this as business cases, saying, if we do this for one operator, it's not worth it. If we do this for one region, it's barely worth it. If we do it for the whole country, it's completely worth it. And so that's just an example. I'm sure the changes are different, but sometimes the business cases to get the central budget is really a valid, good excuse that then opens the door for national procurements. But I'm not saying it's easy. You still have to get everyone to agree, and I understand it's very sophisticated sometimes.
Thank you. If no one has any urgent question or statement he would like to give, because we need formally at least to invite the audience to make a comment or statement, feel free. You're all looking for coffee, what I can understand, but please, before the coffee, give a warm hand to these fantastic 5 panelists and their views.
Thank you very much. Now we have a coffee break. It's a long break, so I ask you to be on time at midday so we can have the last session. Enjoy the coffee break.